you.
Wow. Patriot Day.
That's right, it's
Yes,
9/11.
it is 9/11, and it's also the end of Suicide Awareness Week. So I hope we all know now that that we can talk about things when we have friends and family or folks that we meet who seem kind of depressed and down, that it's okay to ask how they're doing and if they have any thoughts about hurting themselves, because opening that door can change somebody's life. My name's John Braucher, and welcome to World Religions and New Thought Christianity morning class. Today I'm going to share some information from Emile Cady, who wrote this little book called Lessons in Truth. She actually sent it to the Fillmores to ask them to read it, and didn't really have any specific plans, but she did say that if they would publish it, that her only stipulation was not to change anything about it, not to change any words. And she was a physician, what we would call a homeopathic physician at the time, which in the late 1800s was, for a woman, was somewhat new and groundbreaking. She also had, before she went to become educated as a physician, she had a failed marriage. They lost a child, and then their divorce ended their marriage. Now, a lot of people have been studying it through
That's what I have.
this book, which is the complete works of Emile Cady. H stands for Harriet, by the way, which was what she was known by her family. And she, in this, is an edited version. So this, which she had asked not to be done, but she did it anyways. They did it anyways. This book is written in the time of the late 1800s. So the language is a little bit flowery, and it's a little more of a difficult read than the complete works book. And this includes this book plus How I Use Truth and God, a Present Help, which were additional books that the How I Use Truth was like a monthly article that she sent that was published first in a magazine by Unity, and then it was integrated into this book. She was a student, like Fillmore's, of Emma Curtis Hopkins, and she often in her life she felt connected and did a lot of the self-healing and wanted to heal other people, but she often didn't do well financially, especially early on. And even though she was teaching abundance consciousness, it didn't really happen for her early on until she really learned to speak it. And that was one of the things that she kind of, even though it was a part of the lessons that she already had been revealed to her, she didn't find it easy to speak it out initially, and then that's when then it did. Finally, things started becoming much easier for her. At the beginning of this book is a paragraph. There's not really a foreword, but there's a little paragraph written by Charles Fillmore. And it says, "Unity is the link in the great educational movement inaugurated by Jesus Christ. Our objective is to discern truth in Christianity and prove it. The truth that we teach is not new, neither do we claim special revelations or discovery of new religious principles. Our purpose is to help and teach mankind to see and prove the eternal truth taught by our Master." This Lessons in Truth book was the very first book that Unity published. And so it was kind of a groundbreaker. So if you will, just kind of get relaxed and calm, and also hello to those of you that are online with us. And just take some breaths and get centered. We all can learn how to turn the conscious mind towards universal mind or spirit within us. We can, by practice, learn how to make this everyday, topsy-turvy mind on the flesh be still, and let the mind that is God, all wisdom, all love, think in us and out through us. Imagine, if you will, a great reservoir out of which leads innumerable small rivulets or channels. At its farther end, each channel opens up into a small fountain. This fountain is not only being continually filled and replenished from the reservoir, but is itself a radiating center, whence it gives out in all directions that which it receives, so that all who come within its radius are refreshed and blessed. This is our relation to God. Each one of us is a radiating center. Each one, no matter how small or ignorant, is the little fountain at the far end of a channel, the other end of which leads out from which all there is in God. This fountain represents our free will or individuality as separate from the great reservoir, God, and yet as one with him, in that we are constantly fed and renewed from him. And without him, we are nothing. So, Dr. Cady broke this up into 12 lessons, this original book. And also, those of you who like to study the Bible with the metaphysical interpretations, this is a really good book, especially the original. She has lots of scripture that she refers to. Now, part of the editing in this book is that they updated a lot of the new translations. There have been a lot of theologians have gotten a hold of the Aramaic texts. And so there's a lot of new knowledge that she was not privy to in terms of some of the updated translations from both Greek and Aramaic that new professors of theology have figured out and has given more information, and has really helped in some of the interpretations that we now use. So I encourage to be able to read both of the texts. They're both really, her old language is beautiful, but sometimes a little hard to understand. So the first chapter, and the way I'm going to present this is, I'm going to just go ahead and go through the 12 lessons, and then we can talk about them a little more. And what I'm presenting is just one or two kernels that just hit me that I'll share with you all. Okay, so the first lesson is bondage or liberty. So basically, this is this choice that we all make of either co-creating or looking for something outside of ourselves to feel better, escape pain and suffering, or to heal ourselves. And around this time, in the late 19th century, early 20th century, healing through faith was a big thing, more than it is now. Christian Science was big, and especially in the metaphysical circles, but also it was more mainstream than it is now. And so that was part of what was going on. The second chapter, second lesson, is a statement of being. So this is where she talks about God is spirit, creative energy that is the cause of all visible things. So there's nothing that we come in contact to in our physical world that is not of God. One God, one source. Everything, not a person. One God, one source of everything. And that God's not a person, but we see God in all persons. And God is power, intelligence, rather than God has power and intelligence. God is the power and intelligence that we see in whatever it is that we see in manifestation. And God is principle and impersonal, like as in the laws of the universe. However, as God is expressed in this three-dimensional reality that we live in, it's personal to each individual. That how that expresses itself is very personal. So it becomes personal through us and through everyone that God expresses through. The third chapter or lesson is on thinking. And here she helps us to get through the struggle of the connection between the universal mind and the individual mind. The universal mind being that God which is within all of us, and the individual mind being, sometimes we call it the ego, but that intellectual mind that tries to figure everything out. And she says that basically it's one mind, and yet we have free will on the individual mind. So that's the angst that I think we experience as humans. Spirit mind, and the spirit is central and unchanging, divine mind. And then she says the soul is the individual or the mortal mind. And I guess there was a lot written during these days about the mortal mind. And it's the region of intellect, of conscious thinking. And then the third part of a human, and then is the body. The intellect argues And the Spirit reveals truth. It reveals itself. She writes, it does make a difference in daily lives what we think about God, ourselves, and our neighbors. So that when we're thinking, we're creating our reality. And so it does make a difference. And we can, and then as I had read in the meditation, we can all learn how to turn on the conscious mind and turn our conscious mind towards the universal mind just through practice. She writes, in the heart of man, a cry. In the heart of God, supply. So we know that if we ask, it's given. But it may not, we may not know that yet. Fourth chapter is denials, letting go. Then Jesus told his disciples, if any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. And I didn't write down what scripture that was. So, a denial definitions are to refuse to grant something. Another one is to declare untrue. And she says that when we're talking about denials in Unity, we're talking about to declare something untrue. And that's the way that it's used, as opposed to refusing. So the 4 denials she has in this chapter on denials, she has 4 denials that she asks us to practice. The first one is, and these, I want to preface this with, these are hard to accept. And the first time I read them, I go, well, that's just not true. But we have to go a little bit deeper as we go through it. So the first one is, there is no evil. The second one is, there is no absence of life, substance, or intelligence anywhere. Pain, third one is, pain, sickness, poverty, old age, and death cannot master me, for they are not real. The fourth one is, there is nothing in the universe for me to fear, for greater is he, in quotes, that is within me than he that is in the world. The fifth lesson is the affirmations. And the 4 affirmations, and we talk about affirmations here in Unity. So I'm not going to go into the definition. I think we all know it's just affirming what it is that we believe and that we want to occur. So the 4 affirmations that she asks that we commit to memory and practice. God is life, love, intelligence, substance, omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. That's the first one. And again, she doesn't say God has omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence, but God is omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. The second one is, I am a child or manifestation of God, and every moment is life, love, wisdom, power flow into me and through me. I am one with God, and I am governed by his law. The third one, I am spirit, perfect, holy, harmonious. Nothing can hurt me or make me sick or afraid. For spirit is God, and God cannot be sick or hurt or afraid. I manifest my real self through this body now. And the fourth one is, God works in me to will and to do whatever he wishes me to do. And he cannot fail. The sixth lesson is one on faith. Truly, I tell you, if you say to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and if you do not doubt in your heart and believe that what you say will come to pass, it will be done for you. That's Mark 11:23. What I kind of get out of this is that part of faith is letting go of resistance. And when, like the Abraham Hicks folks talk about that resistance and how that stops manifestation, that one of the pieces in faith is that when you thank the universe or God for already having supplied what it is that you asked for, that helps to break down that resistance, and that's maybe a part of what faith is. Another scripture is, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desire of your heart. So that taking delight is kind of in gratitude, and faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. And that's the Hebrews 11:1. And all our needs are already awaiting in the abundance, is a truth that she felt was. And that faith is based on principle, as opposed to based on what we see in our three-dimensional world. And that's what helps us to bridge from not being sure about what is going to occur into faith. And one of the things from the Abraham Hicks is that what gets a lot of people stuck in their misery and suffering is they look around at the world that they're experiencing and saying, this is truth, this is true, this is what is, because this is what I'm seeing, hearing, feeling. And if we can't see beyond that, we often can get stuck in it. And I think that's where faith is a key concept that she teaches. The seventh lesson is on personality and individuality. And this is where she's trying to make a distinction between the two. She talks about personality applies to the human part of you, the person of the external. It belongs to the region of the intellect. It's owned by the intellect. And it's changeable, and it serves as a contradistinction to the inner or real man. Contradistinction, I mean, that's a word from the 19th century. So really, that just means it really makes it clear the distinction between the two. Individuality is the real man or woman. It's the part of one that never changes its identity. It's that whisper in the back. It is God in ourself. And then remember, God is wisdom, intelligence, love, and power, because that's also within us as that part. There's no personality in the universe. There is nothing but God. And yet, this personality is something that we create. It's an individual creation, and this is where I struggle sometimes with this personally, is that there's nothing but God, because God's the universe and the creator of everything. But then when we get into creating, if we're not in connection with God, then we create in error. And yet there is no error. But there's no error only if we're in connection with that real self of God that's within, is within all of us, and it's within everything. It's within, dogs, cats, rocks, trees, and part of her revelation is that when we start to see that in everything, then it becomes more real. Which is that leads right into the next lesson, which is spiritual understanding. Revelation of truth to the consciousness is spiritual understanding. Revelation of truth to the consciousness, so in the individual person, is spiritual understanding. An example is understanding the realization of the presence of God within us. Is an example of revelation of truth or of spiritual understanding. The 9th lesson is the secret place of the Most High. And this she defines as the meeting between the Christ at the center of you, of your being, and your consciousness. So the secret place of the Most High is that place where we feel and sense God within us. The 10th lesson is finding the secret place. You need not strive, only let it learn how to let it be. Meditation with the intention of being in connection. And this we do in silence. Because the chatter of the personality can keep us from being able to make that connection. As opposed to when we're manifesting, we want to intentionally think and speak what we want manifest to be manifested. And so then we go into the affirmations and denials to work that. But initially, the first thing, you know, when Jesus was having a challenge, he would split to the desert for 40 days and go into some long meditation, and that's what that finding the secret place is all about. Finding, you know, what Charles Fillmore said, going to headquarters. The 11th lesson is about the spiritual gifts, and this is about manifestation. Wisdom, love, power, intelligence. She writes, turn to the divine, preserve within yourself, seek him, be still before him. Wait upon God quietly, earnestly, but constantly and trustingly for days, aye, weeks, if need be. Let him work in you, and sooner or later you will spring up into a resurrected life of newness and power that you never before dreamed of. And even though finding the secret place requires silence, again, the manifestation requires speaking, even if this is subvocally. And the 12th lesson is unity of spirit. And there she keep ever in mind that each living person in all God's universe is a radiating center of the same perfect one. So it's there. She also goes on to talk about that every path towards spiritual learning is a part of the same. That's no different. What other people are seeking is still the same. They're seeking the same thing we're seeking, even if they do it in much different ways. And I think part of that was a response to the whole unity message, both from the Fillmores and her, is that there was a lot of fractioning going on within the new Christianity movement at the time. And there always has been within the more mainstream Christian movements. And I think she just wanted to affirm that really we're all in this together. We're all in the same boat. We just all manifest differently, and that's all good. So those are the 12 lessons. And so the first one, again, is bondage or liberty. Anybody have any thoughts on this whole idea of this choice to co-create, or how we come to the idea that we even have a choice? Like, when did you realize that you didn't have to be locked into mainstream?
I've got the microphone if everybody wants to stop. I'm just going to say, you know, this book that you're talking about, Lessons in Truth, is so foundational to what unity is. And as you said, this was the very first publication that, I don't know what they called it back then, Unity Press or whatever, but you know, I think back, you know, that Charles and Myrtle, had not even written themselves, or at least, if that's true, that Lessons in Truth was the first publication. Go ahead, John.
Well, it was the first book, but they had
their own writings,
their
and
weekly and monthly little.
Yeah. Yeah. But I know that they were fervent in getting this book out. I mean, they loved it, and I think that they adopted it as part, from what I remember reading, they adopted it as, you know, truth and unity.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I want to comment on the first lesson that you're talking about, but bondage or truth. Other than the fact that I always, you know...
Or liberty.
Liberty, okay. Yeah. But isn't that what we're always, you know, struggling with, the yin and the yang kind of there?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. And the issue of whether I'm trying to feel better by something outside of myself, you know, versus like, you know, I feel lousy because the politics that's going on. It's the news. It's the stuff that's outside of me that's making me feel, the economy, this, you know, this is what's causing me angst, it's, you know, versus.
And don't most people really only look toward the outside to try and make themselves feel better? To try and find that happiness, I guess. You know?
Well, it's the joy of being in the three-dimensional world, is that we have access to things around us, and we can push and prod and try things and try to do things, and I think that makes a big, you know, and that's the way we learn, you know, and yet they're saying it's like, okay, but it's, you get caught in the trap of the physical desires, and they only work for a certain amount of time. The second one being just the statement of being about God as spirit, creative energy, and the cause of all visible things. And, you know, that's something that I don't think that you would even get any kind of a issue from mainstream religion, whether it be Christian, Judaism, Islam, that they see the source, they still would see the source of everything, and that God being power, intelligence, and all that. But then when she gets to the point of God as principle and impersonal, and not a dude in the sky, and I don't know how many people really still hold on to that. Still. I mean, in their hearts. Once you, even a mainstream Christian who's, I mean, and maybe they do, maybe they have the picture. I guess everybody's different, but so, and to me, it's kind of a struggle because there's that, and I've heard Sue talk about this too before, that you want to have this personal relationship with the all-powerful, what is all-powerful, but it's ineffable. God's ineffable. We can't describe it. We can't wrap our brain around the creation of everything, the universe, because it's too much. And kind of the solution is that it's not really, you know, we would be minimalizing it if we try to make it a being.
I woke up in the middle of the night a couple of weeks ago, and it seems like whenever I do that, or a lot of times when that happens, it's like when you really are just really in touch with a lot of deeper feelings and deeper thoughts. And I woke up after this really intense dream, but to kind of give you a picture of what it was like I had this absolute realization that divine spirit is within all of us. Now, we all philosophize that, but I mean, it really hit me so hard that divine spirit is within us. And so if divine spirit is within us, how can we not have a personal relationship with God?
Right.
Because divine spirit is within us. And at the same time, divine spirit is everywhere and in everything. So when the Hindus or the Buddhists will argue, you know, well, is God a personal God or is God an impersonal God? The answer is yes.
There you go.
Yes. And so we can have that personal relationship with God. And I love that because I'm always talking to myself. I'm always talking to the God within me. And yet at the same time, I can feel the God everywhere. And so anyway, that dream was a real revelation to me.
So when, on the next one where she talks about the difference between the spirit and the soul, that central unchanging divine mind and the intellect mind, how do you discern which is which for yourself?
And that's the issue. Because there are some people who actually believe that their ego is God. And so we get into a lot of trouble when we go that route, you know, or we have people in positions of power that go that route.
There you go. There you go.
It's quite a discernment, and that I think that's what is discernment, you know, or a large part of it anyway. What's your take on it, John?
Well, for me personally, in my own experience, has been that I don't experience the spirit God, the spirit self and mind, until after I go through a period of quietness and stillness. It's not 100% true, because sometimes things just bam, hit you, you know. It's like the old 2x4 and you go, whoa, while you're in the midst of things. Yeah. But the consistently, where I first started to recognize and discern that part of the mind was through the practice of being quiet.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if all of us took that, you know, practice? Wouldn't it be wonderful if all of our elected officials took that practice?
And kindergartners and first and second grade.
Absolutely. All of our, you know, teachers, all of our, you know, churches, all, you know, if everyone took that practice to really go inside first. And that's what I love about Unity, is we do encourage that, and we do that in our own, you know, personal practices and socially too. So
the denials does anybody have any example of denials that have been useful for them? And
well, when COVID came and I have compromising health issues, and my husband certainly did, and so I wrote it down that I was not going to have COVID and I would not allow that, and that is not so. Now, of course, we did stay in and we were careful, but I really felt that strongly that I would not have the first COVID. And because I had declared that I would not have it, I would not allow it, and I didn't, because if I would have had it, I probably wouldn't be in this realm, because I realized it was that serious.
thank you. Now, that's a great example. That's a great example. Anybody have one affirmation that they have found to be of use in their on-day going?
A number of years though I had quit smoking, but prior to that, I remember telling Michelle Johnson that goes here, I said, you know, I'm willing to go this, I hope I can do this. And she said, no, just say, I have done this. And then when I quit, I had no issues, and next month will be, I think, 3 years I've been smoke-free, so that made a big difference, and that helped.
Very good. I'm glad that you were able to. And I quit before I came to Unity, and I tried a lot of times, but the final time that I quit, instead of quitting, I said, I have become a non-smoker. And that difference in my life. Okay.
I can give another example, a real personal thing. I'm an alcoholic in recovery, and it seems like most of us that are in this situation have to have something that is really strong and brings it to your mind. You know that something is not right because you keep drinking and drinking. And so one night I fell. I had a drink in my hand and I fell in my home. And I fell down to the floor, and when I woke up, I still had this glass of alcohol. It hadn't spilled, even with me falling, and I know I was out for just a little bit. But anyway, when my husband came in to check on me, I handed him the glass with my drink in it. I said, I'm not going to drink anymore. And I didn't know at that moment how true that was, because I'm sure he thought, oh yeah, sure, you know. But I got help, and it did. I go to AA, and I keep that in the forefront of my mind, but I didn't. I'd never taken another drink, and that was it. And I know it was my strong belief, yes, that I did.
Thank you. Another excellent example. Okay, so we're about down on time now, so we're going to go ahead and end for today. I really encourage you to look into one or both of these books, this being the original lessons with all the extra flowery language, and this is the edited version with some additional writings that she wrote, and has updated language as well as some corrections in terms of facts that theological facts that we know about the Bible and such. Let's see, should we do the announcements?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Today, after the service, there's a potluck for all, followed by a seminar on estate planning basics. If you have children with you, please go first through the line. We want to get the children fed and settled before we start the presentation. Next Sunday, September 18th, in the New Thought and World Religion class, Amy Burnett will be speaking on Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. September 18th at 4 p.m., Karen Drucker and others will be performing at Unity Temple on the plaza for a benefit concert. Notify the church office if you would like to carpool or caravan. That sounds good. Mat makers of Greater Springfield have kicked off this year's 100 mats in 100 days. They will be meeting here on Thursdays and Saturdays from 10 to 12. Newcomers are always welcome. Also, please start bringing your grocery bags in for the plarn. I guess that's plastic yarn.
Yes.
We will receive new members during the service, September 25th. This is for anyone desiring to become a member of the congregation who has attended at least 6 months, whether online or in person. It is required that you attend the orientation held September 18th in Fellowship Hall, either in person or on Zoom for our online congregants. For our online guests who desire to become a member, you can go to our website and fill out your application there. Final day to submit new member information is Thursday, September 15th. Lunch will be served to the candidates who are in-house. Childcare will be provided. Please call the church office to register your children. Welcome Ambassador Joseph Babbitt has information packets and coffee mugs for people new to the congregation and can answer questions regarding Unity. Save the date. Probable trip for tour of Unity Village on Thursday, October 6th. Details soon. I'm chuckling from comments made about probable trip. From Lisa, cornhole and karaoke is next Saturday, September 17th, 3 to 7 p.m. There are 2 on each cornhole team. The entry fee is $20. The tournament is open to all levels of experience and expertise. The sign-up sheet is in the foyer, or you can sign up online. The festivities are for everyone, not just those who are competing in the cornhole tournament. There will be food and drinks available for purchase. And
John, I think we're
I'm done with
Yeah.
I think we're going to open up the pickleball court that night too, next Saturday night.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
for people just to play around with it so they can kind of get introduced to it. And,
All right.
yeah.
And I guess the first pickleball training
Happened.
group
Yeah.
class happened and was very successful.
Yeah.
So
Alright.
go pickleball
I-
players.
Yeah, thank you.
I encourage and invite anyone who wants to come on and play with us. It's just fun, and it's just a good way to, get to have a little bit of exercise and fun with each other. One thing I did want to say is we do have the basket here. I'm just going to go ahead and pass it around. And John, if you're done.